Welcome to the first public meeting for the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor study. The purpose of today's meeting is threefold. First, we'd like to provide a brief introduction to the study. Second is to provide background information on why we are conducting the study. And third, we'd like to gather comments to help us identify transportation-related issues and needs throughout the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor that should be addressed as part of the study, as well as to help the study team identify goals and priorities to develop a long-range vision for the corridor. At the onset of the study, a study advisory team was developed to help provide guidance through completion of the study. And this advisory team includes representatives from the Southeastern Council of Governments, Lincoln County, City of Harrisburg, City of Sioux Falls, and the South Dakota Department of Transportation. The corridor study area includes approximately 9 miles of Lincoln County Highway 106 or 271st Street between and including the intersections of Tallgrass Avenue to the west and 480th Avenue to the east. That this study area does include the analysis of all 10 major arterial intersections along the 106 corridor. There are 5 overarching goals for this study, and the first is to determine the number of lanes throughout the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor. And this is whether a single lane in each direction will accommodate future traffic volumes or whether we need to look at multiple lanes in each direction. Second goal is to develop alternatives for all arterial, or major intersections throughout the study area. Third goal is to develop a corridor access management plan to identify access priority and spacing throughout the corridor. Fourth goal is to identify a corridor land use plan, and that goes hand in hand with that access management plan to help guide future development and identify where future access locations are needed and where they could be provided throughout the corridor. And ultimately, when we bring all those elements together, we want to develop that long-range plan that will help guide the corridor for the next 25 to 30 plus years. The corridor study began in July 2022, and we are currently in the final steps of the baseline conditions analysis phase. This first public meeting, we are looking for your feedback on the various transportation-related issues and needs that needs to be addressed as part of the corridor study. At the completion of the public comment period, which will end on October 31st, we will take that feedback and move into the next phase of the study, which includes the development and refinement of alternatives, as well as developing preliminary recommendations. In spring of 2023, we will come back for the second public meeting to present those alternatives as well as those preliminary recommendations. Your feedback will be very helpful in finalizing recommendations and those alternatives, allowing us to develop the corridor study report, and completion of the study is anticipated in late spring of 2023. So for the rest of the presentation, I'd like to focus a little bit on some background information developed as part of the baseline conditions analysis. We'll start with a brief overview of the Sioux Falls and Harrisburg growth areas related to the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor. From there, we'll move into a few slides related to traffic volumes, both from existing traffic count perspective as well as future traffic volumes and the potential impacts of Veterans Parkway on area traffic patterns. Touch on the crash history throughout the corridor, and then we'll present a few potential connectivity options between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue. When we look back to the various agencies on the study advisory team, this corridor really lends itself to a multi-jurisdictional corridor study. The current owner of Lincoln County Highway 106 is Lincoln County. The existing cross-section is a rural 2-lane highway cross-section with roadside ditches, very typical to Lincoln County highways throughout the county. However, as we look into the future, that Lincoln County Highway 106 is the growth boundary between the City of Sioux Falls and City of Harrisburg. So as Harrisburg continues to grow to the north, Sioux Falls continues to grow to the south, the future corridor is going to look considerably different as development occurs throughout the study area. Traffic volumes are an excellent way to help illustrate and quantify operational needs at intersections and along roadway segments within the study corridor. The existing volume data set is based on traffic counts that were collected in June and July of 2022. Traffic forecasts or future year traffic volumes were also developed using the Sioux Falls MPO travel demand model for the years of 2028, which reflects that time frame shortly after the full opening of Veterans Parkway between I-29 and 57th Street, as well as year 2050, which reflects the study's planning horizon. So from a big picture perspective, that we'd anticipate continued volume growth on the north-south arterials, such as Louise Avenue, Minnesota Avenue, and Cliff Avenue, well into the future, that as City of Harrisburg, City of Sioux Falls development continues, those volumes on north-south arterials are going to continue to grow. However, when we look at traffic patterns and volumes on Lincoln County Highway 106, the opening of Veterans Parkway is going to have considerable impact on those volumes, and that's something I want to show here over the next few slides. These next three slides focus on Lincoln County Highway 106 between Tallgrass Avenue and Minnesota Avenue, or South Dakota 115. This first slide shows existing daily traffic volumes, which are reflective of June and July traffic counts here in 2022. For example, the daily segment volume between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue is 11,000 vehicles per day. As we move to the east between Louise Avenue and Western Avenue and Minnesota Avenue, the daily volumes reflect approximately 9,500 vehicles per day. And the key takeaways in this area is that currently very little traffic is actually generated on the corridor east of Tallgrass Avenue. That most of the traffic using this corridor has an origin and a destination outside of the study area or off of the corridor. And one of the key components of this is that currently Lincoln County Highway 106 has a connection to I-29 exit 73. And essentially this corridor really currently functions as a distributor of east-west traffic to those north-south arterials in this area. As we move to year 2028, this time frame reflects conditions where South Veterans Parkway is complete and fully open between I-29 and 57th Street. And with opening of Veterans Parkway, we anticipate immediate shift in traffic volumes from Lincoln County Highway 106 to Veterans Parkway. And one of the key contributors to this is that Veterans Parkway will now provide that direct link to I-29 exit 73 and provide that regional connectivity for east-west travel to your north-south arterials. Lincoln County Highway 106 will no longer have that direct connection between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue, and particularly that won't have that direct connection to I-29 exit 73. So for the most part, a lot of that east-west regional type traffic that is being distributed to your north-south arterials is no longer occurring on Lincoln County Highway 106 west of Minnesota Avenue, is instead occurring on Veterans Parkway. In 2028, we still anticipated limited development along the corridor, so there still is not a lot of traffic volumes being generated along the corridor itself. So those two key components are primary contributors to what we anticipate is a significant reduction in traffic volumes in this area when we look at existing volumes. For example, again, we're at kind of that 9,500 vehicles per day range between Louise Avenue and Minnesota Avenue. We'd anticipate that to decrease considerably closer to 3,500 vehicles per day upon opening of Veterans Parkway. As we move to the study's planning horizon year of 2050, Veterans Parkway is still providing that high capacity, high speed regional travel throughout the area. It's still distributing your east-west traffic volumes to your north-south arterials. The primary difference now is that along Lincoln County Highway 106, that there is anticipated to be increasing development along the corridor. And that development is generating traffic volumes that are now using the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor. So as we look at the progression of volumes through this area between Louise Avenue and Minnesota Avenue, existing volumes are around 9,500 vehicles per day. In year 2028, following opening of Veterans Parkway, we anticipate that immediate shift in volumes from Lincoln County Highway 106 up to Veterans Parkway, see that immediate decrease kind of down to the 3,500 vehicles per day range. But as development occurs along the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor, we see those volumes begin to increase, in this instance showing year 2050, kind of that 5,500 to 6,500 vehicles per day. And this is really important to keep in mind as we're looking at the future needs throughout the corridor and how these volumes and the associated needs progress through the different changes in traffic patterns and other roadway improvements throughout the study area. Shifting further east along the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor, the next three slides focus on daily traffic volumes east of Cliff Avenue. In this first slide, we're looking at existing traffic counts from summer of 2022. And as you can see, volumes are considerably lower than what we saw between Tallgrass Avenue and Minnesota Avenue. For example, here between Cliff Avenue and Southeastern Avenue, existing daily segment volumes are approximately 6,500 vehicles per day. Between Southeastern Avenue and South Dakota Highway 11, we're around 5,500 vehicles per day. And east of South Dakota Highway 11, around 4,000 vehicles per day. As we move to year 2028, which again is reflective of that time frame shortly after Veterans Parkway is fully constructed and open to traffic between I-29 and 57th Street, that we anticipate the Veterans Parkway will have less impact on area traffic volumes and patterns than what we saw west of Minnesota Avenue. And a lot of that has to do with where traffic is coming from and going to that's using Lincoln County Highway 106, as well as maintaining those connections within this area. So three key examples where traffic will continue to use similar patterns to what they are today, using Lincoln County Highway 106 as that east-west distributor through north-south arterials, include South Dakota Highway 11 traffic that originates from or is destined to areas to the south, such as the Canton area, traffic that is using the Big Sioux River Bridge to access, come from or travel to areas in Iowa, as well as the residential development east of South Dakota Highway 11. In the study's planning horizon year 2050, we anticipate continued growth in traffic volumes throughout the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor. However, in this area, we anticipate that growth to be less than what we previously saw west of Minnesota Avenue. And there's really two key considerations associated with this. And the first one is environmental constraints, particularly with Spring Creek. So east of Cliff Avenue, Spring Creek is on the north side, and with the associated topography, it's going to be challenging for future development north of Lincoln County Highway 106 to have direct access with the highway. A lot of that future development is going to have the access on the north-south arterials and throughout the area, and thus, there's a considerable amount of that traffic that will not use Lincoln County Highway 106 within the study area. Second key consideration is the City of Sioux Falls long-range growth tiers. A lot of the area east of Cliff Avenue is in the City of Sioux Falls Tier 3 growth area, which is kind of in that 15 to 20 year time frame from when it will be developed and served by future utilities. And thus that's going to be a limiting factor in the amount of development that we're looking at here within the study's planning horizon. One key consideration here is that while we may not necessarily have a lot of development in these traffic volumes north of Lincoln County Highway 106 or south of Lincoln County Highway 106 east of Cliff Avenue, we know it's coming. So that's certainly a consideration when we're looking at those future number of lanes, future intersection configurations here within this area. Using traffic volumes developed for this corridor study, the next step is identifying planning level timelines for intersection improvements. And through the baseline conditions analysis, we've identified when specific intersections start reaching levels of congestion or unacceptable delay or long queues. So first using the 2022 counts that were collected in June, July of this summer, Western Avenue, Cliff Avenue, and South Dakota Highway 11 all exhibit some sort of characteristic that may warrant consideration of modification. However, as we move towards year 2028, with the opening of Veterans Parkway in year 2027, that immediate shift in traffic volumes and relocation of Lincoln County Highway 106 traffic up to Veterans Parkway addresses the needs that we see with today's volumes. Moving closer to 2040, as volumes continue to grow on your north-south arterials, Southeastern Avenue and South Dakota Highway 11 intersections emerge for potential need for modification. And as we move towards 2050, those needs increase, that as again those north-south arterials volumes continue to grow, Western Avenue, Minnesota Avenue, Cliff Avenue, Southeastern Avenue, South Dakota Highway 11 all exhibit potential modification needs related to traffic operations. This slide illustrates crash history in terms of crash density for all reported crashes along the study corridor between the years of 2017 and 2021. Crash density is a function of crash frequency in terms of number of crashes at specific locations. Intersections that stood out from a density standpoint include the Minnesota Avenue and Cliff Avenue intersections, which were not surprising based on the amount of traffic volumes entering those intersections both from the east-west directions as well as north-south directions. From a segment standpoint, the Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue segment stood out a little bit from the other segments in terms of overall crashes. However, there were very similar crash characteristics exhibited throughout the entire corridor, which include single vehicle run off the road type crashes, as well as angled rear end crashes at specific access points. So the question for you as part of this first public meeting is, do you see any emerging trends or issues along this corridor from a safety standpoint that may not necessarily be reflected in this crash history? As noted earlier in the presentation, that with the construction of Veterans Parkway, there will no longer be a direct connection of Lincoln County Highway 106 between Tallgrass Avenue and Louise Avenue. So this slide here shows a couple very preliminary options for potential alignments to facilitate this connection in the future. With this, there are two options that extend west out of the existing Louise Avenue, Lincoln County Highway 106 roundabout and tie into Tallgrass Avenue, whether it's a quarter mile south of Veterans Parkway or a half mile south of Veterans Parkway. There's also an option that provides a direct east-west connection south of Lincoln County Highway 106, whether it's a quarter mile south of Veterans Parkway on Tallgrass Avenue or half mile south of Veterans Parkway on Louise Avenue. So with this, we are looking for your feedback on A, whether you feel this connection is important and should be included at some point in the future, and B, if you had a recommendation for one of these alignment options and why. This concludes the background information portion of the public meeting presentation. I'd like to remind everyone to please provide your thoughts and feedback on the transportation-related issues and needs throughout the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor that should be addressed as part of the study. Also, any goals and priorities to help the study team develop that long-range vision for the corridor. There are several opportunities for you to provide feedback. The first is to leave a comment card before you leave the public meeting. Second is you can reach out to either of the study contacts via either email or phone. And third, we have a short survey that can be accessed through this link, also available on your meeting handout. And it's 5 questions that gets into the transportation-related issues and needs, as well as goals and priorities. With that, I'd just like to thank everyone for their interest and participation in this first public meeting for the Lincoln County Highway 106 corridor study. I'd like to remind everyone that we'd appreciate comments back by October 31st. That will allow us to move into the next phase of the study where we begin to develop, refine, and evaluate concepts to reflect that future vision for the corridor. We will return in spring of 2023 for that second public meeting to present alternatives as well as preliminary recommendations for your feedback. Study contacts are there on the right. Either reach out to Jim Feeney with Southeastern Council of Governments or John Wigand with HDR. Study website and survey links are on the bottom of the screen. Thank you.